Hi everyone, my name is Niels. I'm the creative director at Digital Venue, a glam tech company developing AI tools for the cultural sector. And today I want to talk about conversational AI and some of the technologies that sit behind that. I want to talk about how conversational AI may help museums like yourselves build on the digital foundations they've already laid, how to create experiences that feel more natural, more intuitive, and more human, hopefully, and showcase, of course, some of the work that we've been doing in this space. First, however, I want you to picture this. A family arrives in London, coincidentally, for a weekend away, and unsure what to do first. They come to the Tate Modern, unsure what to do first. One parent asks their phone, "Hey, we're at the Tate, but our kids love science, and we only have 45 minutes. Where do we start? What do we do?" And then a conversational assistant replies, not just with a map or opening hours, but with suggestions that are tailored to the interests of their group, so of their ages, of the time that they have, of whatever they're interested in seeing. And perhaps it might guide them through the Turbine Hall's latest installation, or it might highlight its themes around science and technology. It might suggest a workshop, hands-on exploration in the Tate Exchange workshops that focuses on art and innovation. So immediately, without any friction, our family is off on a personalized journey of serendipitous discovery that we all love as museum people, right? So how might we enable this? Let's look at some of the foundations that got us where we are now. Just a quick recap. Over the last decade or so, we've been digitizing collections, we've been standardizing metadata, we've been addressing copyright and permissions, we've opened up, we've enabled access, we've linked data across organizations, we've done all these beautiful investments into digital accessibility, but still, from a visitor perspective, return on investment and public uptake of this wealth of data that we've made available hasn't necessarily been as strong as we maybe hoped. And this idea of build it and they will come didn't really live up to everyone's expectations, I think it's fair to say. And I believe we can do better because we have this wealth of data now. So we can turn this investment really into meaningful discovery and learning with these new tools that are becoming more available to us. And we can unleash this knowledge and reveal the stories that museums want to tell or cultural organizations want to tell. And the first thing that we really need to understand when thinking about visitors is that they don't necessarily come to search for something in particular, they come to discover something. So they might not actually arrive with a research question or even really know what to ask for. They might even speak museum, they might not know how we describe collections, how we organize our objects, how we structure our museum spaces, our galleries. Yet, a lot of the digital interpretation that we offer as museums still expects visitors to look at screens, to search, to click, to scroll, to filter, to browse, to get to the information. But what that does is it creates a barrier and a high entry threshold for those people who don't know how to use those systems or who don't speak that language. So it pulls visitors away from the experience that they actually seek, which is an immersive one, to be amazed, immersed in the space and discover something unexpected. And I think one of the ways to achieve that is conversation and are these new tools of conversational assistance. And why conversation, you may ask? Well, it is one of the oldest and most natural forms of sharing knowledge. That's a given. Speaking is intuitive, it's personal, highly personal, it's exploratory, It requires little learning curve for most people. And from a UX perspective, from a user experience perspective, which is where we're coming from, it's an ideal interface like that for visitors of all backgrounds and abilities. So it's no surprise, really, that that interface is seeing more use now, and we're seeing this pop up in different places, maybe not necessarily museums just quite yet. So this is where these conversational assistants come into play. And I just want to quickly talk about what those are and how they work. So what is a conversational assistant? Firstly, it is an AI that you can talk to. And some of you have done that, I'm sure, with ChatGPT, for instance. Now you can talk to it when you use the app. But the difference here is that we need an AI that doesn't necessarily have really broad general knowledge, but it needs to be an expert in a specific domain, which in this case is what we have on display in the museums. So it is an expert AI that you can talk to. Secondly, it is an emerging digital user interface that we will be seeing more of. And we can see that in the new generation of smartphones that are coming out that are now merging their voice assistants with on-chip AI. So Siri now becomes much smarter all of a sudden. And what I believe is that this really will shape visitor needs and expectations when it becomes more commonly used. People will order the pizzas with their conversational assistant. So there will be an expectation that they have access to a similar kind of method of engagement when they come to a place of knowledge that a cultural institution is. And thirdly, and I think that is really important, and for me it is cracking a bit of the big conundrum that we've struggled with over the last 10, 15 years thinking of digital in museums, is it is screenless. So it allows us to add a layer of digital interpretation to a space or an object without creating this barrier of putting a screen between the visitor and the space. So it leaves them in that immersive spatial experience that they really came for in the first place. And also it offers a very tailored experience where it's different from, say, an audio guide that does a similar thing. It adds information without a screen. But these conversational assistants are dynamic, so they're not on rails, if you like, but they offer a conversation that is inquiry-led, curiosity-based, and is unique every time. So you can ask open questions, and you can ask them in almost any language, which is pretty awesome. So how do they work? This is very high level, but I think it's important to just get a baseline understanding of the sort of the tech stack that sits behind it, if you like. So firstly, the visitor would call the assistants on their personal device, on their phone, by maybe scanning a QR code or by clicking on a link. And then what they would do, and they would have headphones, presumably, maybe earbuds or something like that, and then they would put their phone into their pockets, away the screen goes, and this assistant replies. And automated speech recognition, or ASR, converts the audio of that conversation into text. And this text then gets sent to a large language model, which could be something like ChatGPT, or it could be Gemini, or it could be Claude, or whatever LLM you want to stick in there. And that contextually interprets the text and recognizes the context and any queries any questions that visitors might have. And then, importantly, thinking back to the fact that we have this expert knowledge, it goes and looks up the facts that relate to that question in a specific database or a RAG that has been populated with trusted information. So you know, I've put that information in there, it's all factually correct. The LLM goes in there and looks it up and goes, okay, I've got this information from there, so it's got to be correct. Sends it back to the large language model, which generates a response, so whatever text comes out, the answer, if you think of it like that, and that then gets converted through text-to-speech into a spoken word that comes out of the headphones. And all of this happens in milliseconds, like in real time, given fast enough connectivity, which you have on a Wi-Fi, or you have anywhere from 4G upwards. And I think it's really important to think of these conversational AIs not so much as a single-use tool that serves a specific purpose, but more as a flexible user interface that can serve many different purposes, right? It is a new user interface. And knowing all of those things, here comes the plug. We've built a number of these assistants using an AI platform that we've developed that's called Convey. And what I want to do now is show a few real-world examples and use cases how this technology could be applied and has been applied. And there's a disclaimer here, these are pre-recorded because I didn't really want to do a live demo with so many people in the room and a limited Wi-Fi connection and microphones and all that stuff. So these are pre-recorded, but I do encourage you to come drop by our booth, G3, to try it out for yourself. So that was the disclaimer. I'm going to kick right in with the first example, which is a digital concierge who welcomes people to the museum. And bear in mind, any language that these visitors speak, this works in.
Welcome to Techniska Museum. I'm here to help you make the most of your visit. Can I ask who you are visiting with and their age? Let me know, and I can suggest activities that suit everyone, and together we'll plan a fantastic visit.
Oh, hi. I'm here with my two sons today. They're 9 and 11, and they're really into kind of science, robotics, and Lego. They love Lego, and we only have 45 minutes, and we also want to grab something to bite before we go into the museum. Can you give me some recommendations?
Okay, that sounds like a fun visit. Given your son's ages and interests and the limited time you have, I can certainly suggest a few things. First, since you're planning to grab a bite before exploring, I recommend heading to the museum cafe. It's a great place to relax and recharge before diving into the exhibitions. As for exhibitions, I would recommend Megamind, which is a creative arena where they can test new ideas through interactive stations. Would you like me to provide more information on these exhibitions?
Yeah, what sort of stuff can they do at Megaminds? That sounds cool.
Megamind is designed as a creative space where kids can really get hands-on with technology and innovation. They can paint with their eyes, create virtual sculptures, and even control objects with the power of thought.
Wow,
It's all
that's pretty awesome, eh? What are the tickets? Is that included? How much does it cost?
That's a great question. Entry to 12 of our exhibitions is included in the standard entrance ticket, which costs 100 kroner on weekdays and 170 kroner on weekends and holidays. The good news is that children under the age of 7 get in for free.
So yeah, who would want to go there? I think what I want to point out here is a couple of things. Firstly, it understands a complex query, so it understands the interests and the needs of an entire group of people, and it's been trained on all the stuff that is on at the museum, and it knows how long these things take and how suitable they are for certain age groups of visitors. And what sort of thematic focus each of these exhibitions has. And then lastly, it combines very different data. So it knows all those things about the exhibition itself, but it also knows about the cafe, and it knows about ticketing and the prices as well. So it doesn't really fall short of any of those things that could come up in a conversation like that. Now, that was only one scenario. The next one I want to share with you is one that we call live guides, which you can think of as an audio guide but an interactive one. So you can always stop the audio guide at any point and follow your interest rather than, again, being on rails.
Would you like me to take you on a tour of the Pacific Pathfinders Gallery? I'll be happy to tell you about the objects on display. And if you have any questions, just interrupt me and fire away. I promise I won't hold a grudge.
That's very kind of you, thank you. Hey, I'm just looking at this, I think it's a boat in front of me. What can you tell me about that?
Ah, you must be looking at the double-hulled canoe model. I'd be happy to tell you more. This model exemplifies Polynesian advancements in maritime technology. Its design facilitated extended voyages, significantly contributing to the settlement of numerous islands. Is there anything specific you'd like to know about it? For example, are you interested in the materials used, the purpose of the double hull, or how it enabled long-distance travel?
Well, yeah, I'm interested in all of those things, but just right now I'm looking at these really cool carvings there in the front. Can you tell me a bit more about those?
Ah, yes, the carvings. Those are indeed a fascinating aspect of the double-hulled canoe. The carvings you see on the front of the canoe model often served multiple purposes. They could be decorative, reflecting the artistic skills and cultural identity of the community that built the canoe. But more importantly, they often had symbolic meanings. They might represent ancestral figures, protective spirits, or important symbols related to navigation, the ocean, or the journey the canoe was meant to undertake. The specific designs and their meanings would vary depending on the island and the traditions of the people who created the canoe. Do you have any questions about the carvings that I can answer?
No, but I do wonder about the navigation. Is there any other objects in the gallery here that relate to navigation?
Yes, there are. Besides the double-hulled canoe model, we also have a star compass chart and a shell map on display, both of which were crucial tools for navigation.
So yeah, what I want to point out here is firstly that aspect of inquiry-led content delivery. So it follows my interests as opposed to giving me a linear narrative. And while it does that, it still offers more segues to keep the conversation going based on the knowledge that it has about the object. But at any point I can change topics and say, oh, well, actually, no, I want to know about navigation. So tell me about that. And what else do you have? And because it's been trained on all the objects that are part of that exhibition context, it knows, oh, yeah, there's other stuff that's related to navigation. Maybe you want to look at the star chart. And then the idea being, okay, I'll go walk over to the star chart, and then we start talking about that. Or then we look at the paddle and start talking about that. And of course, we can flip this as well and look at making objects talk, which I know you probably have seen the Cambridge Museum's, University of Cambridge's talk just earlier around that. That is something that our system also allows you to do.
I'm a control panel that originally came from Oa-Jester power plant. Its history is fascinating, and I could go on for hours, so feel free to ask questions to dive deeper at any time. Now, I suggest we dive right in with some of the unexpected mysteries that might surprise you. Does that sound good?
That sounds super cool. What's the most exciting thing that you have?
Well, as a control panel, I'd have to say the most exciting thing I could show you is, well, myself, the main control board. Imagine standing in the very room where the operators monitored the heart of the Oa-Jester plant. Beyond that, there are items like the protective clothing and the radiation meters. They offer a glimpse into the daily reality and precautions taken by the dedicated people who worked within these walls. These weren't just machines. They were places where people spent their days, managing a powerful new technology.
That sounds great. Hey, can you switch to German? Because my English is actually not that good.
Absolut. Wir können gerne auf Deutsch weitersprechen, es Ihnen einfacher zu machen.
So yeah, there we go. Bringing objects to life. Objects, of course, are much less controversial than people. So there's some ethical considerations around that. maybe possibly even ethical considerations, bringing animals to life and letting them speak. Hence, I've chosen a control panel of a nuclear power plant, which is probably less controversial. But it's really interesting. You can have long, extended conversations around this power plant. I did it while I was doing the dishes, half an hour of learning about the power plant and the secret nuclear program that was run by the Swedish government and all those things. Really fascinating. And I also wanted to point out, of course, the ability to switch languages midway. Also, from your first interaction onwards, if you start by saying, hello, my name is Niels, then it will know, oh, this person speaks German, so I'm going to respond in German. The next one and last example is a bit of an outlier in that it hasn't been trained on knowledge as such, but it has been connected to a collections online API and searches that in real time. So it becomes a browsing discovery tool for your online collections, allowing just a very different and natural way to have an experience with those collections, even if you don't know what you're looking for, right? And this is the graveyard shift, so bear with me with the content of this example.
Hi, and welcome to the Canterbury Museum online collection. I'm your guide to what's in our catalogue. What topic are you interested in exploring today? Ask me anything you like to dig deeper, and feel free to interrupt me at any point.
Well, we're getting closer to 4 o'clock, so I'm interested in beer. What do you got?
Okay, searching for beer in general turned up 108 items. Here are a few that might interest you. There's a beer mug from around 1977, a beer bottle from Jacob Ruppert, and a beer glass from the wreck of the Preußen. We also have several...
Can you tell me a bit more about that mug?
Certainly. Let me get some more information on that beer mug for you. It has a unique identifier of 445444815 if you'd like to look it up on Digital NZ. This beer mug is a tall one with a large handle and a thick base. It features a yellow decal trademark for Lion Brewery's beer hotels, which sold that particular brand of beer. It was made around 1977 by Crown Crystal Glass. Does that sound interesting to you?
Sounds very interesting. Thank you.
Okay, so I think it's really interesting here to see that the response speed of how fast it can query this database, build an index of it, summarize the information, get all the object-specific identifiers out of it, and then allows me to dig deeper into specific object records, pull the metadata of that, and play it back as a story. Also wanted to point out here that I interrupted the flow of the conversation, said, oh yeah, no, that's the one that I want, and kept it from keep blabbering on, basically. Okay, so those are the examples. I just want to close off with a quick sort of vision of where we can see this going, and thinking back to the family that comes to London for a weekend. Of course, what would be awesome is a connected ecosystem across a city where visitors can move seamlessly between organizations, institutions. So the assistant could maybe suggest other places in London that they could visit while they're here over the weekend, because it knows they're going to be here the entire weekend. So they might go to a sculpture at the V&A, or they might go to a scientific exhibition at the Wellcome Collection. And by pooling this data of participating organizations, we can create these cultural journeys that are richer and more personal and more enduring than a single visit. And of course, ideally, that could also scale to global across organizations and countries, enabling our audiences to culture snack their way through the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Niels. So we've got some time for Q&A. So oh, wonderful. You did well for the graveyard shift.
I have two questions. One is, So you can switch between languages. Can you switch between regional variations?
Of language, dialects.
Yeah, so for example, with the Canterbury Museum, there, could you have had that in a
Kiwi accent. Well, you have the ability to choose different voices, and you even have the ability to digitize your own voice for the text-to-speech engine. So you could theoretically have a Kiwi speaker that has a Kiwi accent.
Yeah.
And we did a pilot for Kadu, which is Welsh, and found a speaker that has a slight Welsh accent. But in saying that, by default, it struggles with pronunciation of Welsh words, place names in particular. But what you can do is you can refine the model and give it a pronunciation dictionary, which basically uses, takes the words and what's it called, the IPA, as a way to describe the vowels, basically, and that works with the engine. The phonetics, yes, thank you.
Cool.
Yeah.
And if I can squeeze a second question.
Sure.
If you ask the same question again, would you get the same answer?
No, you wouldn't. It probably would say, hey, you've asked this before, but I can tell you something else about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you.
Oh, I've got another one just here.
Thank you very much. Well, it's impressive. And one of the way why it's impressive, because the product is very well developed. And when the product is that well developed, it costs a lot. What's your monetization model?
Yeah, good question. And that's also something that we're actually still exploring, to be honest. It is a freemium model, so so it's this sort of, the way we see it at the moment is that it's a tiered freemium model with the baseline being free, so I encourage everyone to have a go with it. And then it's based on the number of hours of talking time, essentially, because that translates into AI tokens that we have to pay for as a service that does all those things, right? So at the moment we see that the freemium model baseline is free, and then it stacks up based on the number of usage. So the British Museum, which would be great to have as a client, would probably be a bit more expensive because they would have more user interactions.
And it's the museum who's paying, not the users.
Yes. Good question. Yes. That's how I see it anyway. I would definitely see that as a free service offered by the museum. Yeah.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? Somewhere over on this side. Oh, just look down as you put your hand up.
Hi, I was just wondering how many man-hours does it take for the curator input in order to train the model, and exactly how does that work? So would it be based on curatorial publications or research, or would they physically actually have to talk to it? That's a stupid question, sorry.
No.
But just wondering how that kind of...
Really good question. So the question was how much time does it take to train the engine? And it's probably more a matter of minutes rather than hours, to be honest. One of the kind of promises of the engine is that you can take existing information from anywhere across the organization that hasn't been written for the purpose of being visitor-facing and put it into the system. So it's a kind of a way to break down silos as well. You could have a scientific publication or research paper alongside exhibition labels, alongside a blog on the website that all talk about the same thing from a different angle, maybe collections, data, metadata on top of it, and just take the existing stuff and load it into the system. And then it takes a few minutes to index it, so to go through its machine learning algorithm, if you like, and join the dots, and then it's part of the knowledge base. There is a way, of course, that you can tweak it so you would then typically go through a process of testing it and going, okay, well, I'm happy with this response, or actually there's, like, one of the challenges that we've come across is where it talks about the same thing, but from in different variations of it. Say, there would be, if you think about the power plant example, and there was a secret Swedish nuclear bomb program, And now a book has been published with new research in it that sort of challenges that idea. And those then exist concurrently without a weighting to it, right? So both things to the AI are true. And so you'd have to go in and tweak that and say, hey, actually, I want you to say there is a diversity of opinions around this topic. One of the versions is that there was one, and one of them is there isn't. And so you would add that bit manually to the knowledge base. Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Oh, one more question.
Thanks. So obviously, the better the experience is depending on how much information and the richness of the information in there.
Yeah.
If you're dealing with a heritage organisation, you'll be drawing on their resources, their information, etc. With large language models, generally that information then goes into ChatGPT puts the information in the public domain.
Yeah.
Heritage organisations might not want that to happen. It's their intellectual property,
Yep.
their ownership. So how do you deal with that? And especially if my organisation's relationship ends with you and you move on, we'll move on. What happens to that information then?
Yeah, so very good question. Question was, is the data that is put in the system by customers used to train the large language model, or kind of used for any other purposes rather than generating these outputs? And so how it works is that this information that is uploaded it's kept separately in a vector store, which is its own database that is ring-fenced to the organization. So it's not actually being used back into the large language model, and it's also not used by us for any other, to train our engine. But basically, it's just a lookup table, if you like, where it goes and checks its facts. And I know I've had a really interesting discussion around that at another conference the other day, whether museums actually have the responsibility to supply data, not that we're doing that, but to supply the data to offset the inherent bias that these large language models have, because we sit on more, I guess, better researched, less biased information. But that's for another day. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Thanks. Yeah, I guess the first part. And the second part about if we part ways and our organisations no longer work together, what happens to my information in your large language model?
Oh, you delete it, basically, with the account. So, we delete the account, which includes the vector store that is specific to your organization, which is Go. Also, that just on that note, you do have the ability to, you see all the files that you've uploaded, and you can selectively remove some of them. So if something gets saved in an exhibition context, you have an object that's coming off display for conservation or something like that, and it's no longer part of the context. You can just delete that knowledge, and it won't be included in the responses. Or you could update that knowledge with, whatever.
Niels, I just want to say thank you. It was a really wonderful presentation.
Thank you very much.